Alright, so today is special because I'm going to review a movie that I actually liked. I love this film. Love it. Talking about The Wicker Man, not the early 2000s Nicolas Cage version.
How'd it get burned? How'd it get burned? How'd it get burned? How'd it get burned?
So I went into this movie knowing the basic premise, and I don't want to spoil this movie too much. So I'll keep it brief. I'll tell you what I knew going in. I knew that it was about a police officer going to a remote island after he receives a letter that a little girl is missing. And the people on the island are part of a cult, a pagan cult. You know, I'm just gonna say, if you're the type of person who is willing to go into a movie not knowing that much, I say turn this off and go watch it. And if you are someone who you're a little more picky and you are skeptical, then keep watching. It has a very basic premise that could just be a very routine thriller. But the execution is so unique. Even from the beginning, once this guy lands, this takes place in Scotland, and I think all the actors are Scottish. I think the director is Scottish. It's a Scottish film. And the music is like this really pretty folk music.
The sky was blue, the wind was still, the moon was shining clear. I set her down with the right goodwill among the eggs of barley.
Immediately, that's just kind of not what I was expecting in the soundtrack. I mean, people are pretty suspicious in the fact that no one will give them information about this little girl, but they're just so friendly and happy and loving. It treats them like they're real people, and it treats their rituals with respect almost. It's like you could kind of see the lore of how like someone raised in this society, how it would just seem so normal. Spoiler, it's a musical, and that was such a shock. I was not expecting that, but I loved it. I thought it totally made the experience way more fascinating. You see the beauty in the cult, and I think that's what's really important, is that they're humanized. They're not these like crazy, I guess they're crazy. You can see the different sides of these people and of their pagan beliefs and rituals. Well, okay, for example, when I'm talking about like the beauty of their beliefs, they're just all about embracing nature and the natural world, and they don't really like to think of death as an end of life, but rather a continuation. And they plant trees over gravestones. And so there's the scene where all the kids are dancing around this wooden pole and they're singing about the cycle of life. To my knowledge, all the songs were written for this movie, but this really sounds like a little nursery rhyme that these kids would be singing. It sounds so real.
And from that man there was a seed, and from that seed there was a boy, and from that boy there was a man, and from that man there was a grave, and from that grave there grew a tree.
Man, and from that man there was a grave, and from that grave there was a tree, and it all goes back to the tree, and it's like, it's really catchy. I could not get the song stuck out of my head for the following week, and I just could not take my eyes off the screen. Another thing, the cinematography, there are a lot of zooms, but I think that's really fun, but the cinematography overall, and just the landscapes, like this is such a beautiful island. I love the approach that this film had, and it's very similar to Midsommar. It's very clear that the director of Midsommar, Ari Aster, saw this movie and took a lot of inspiration from it, in the way that both depict the human sides of the cult. What I really liked about this movie is it's not very on the nose or anything. I feel like there could be a lot of different readings to this film. The one thing that is very obvious is that the protagonist, Howie, this detective, is extremely religious. He's saving himself from marriage, and he's constantly mortified by these traditions and these beliefs, even when the audience isn't. Like, he is freaked out by the fact that sex is so normalized on this cult. It's, talked about at a very young age in the classroom. He's mortified by that. He's constantly warning everyone about the ramifications of what they're doing and that, about how it's ungodly or unholy. And yeah, as the movie goes, we definitely see more and more of these darker traditions and these less pleasant ones, the ones that are more scary. And neither of these forces, I should say the face of the cult is his name just Summerisle? I'll have to correct myself on that. But both of these faces are, these really stubborn, set people. Neither will back down on what they believe. But at the end of the day, it's kind of poking holes in both religions, because I think he is such a counterforce to all his surroundings during this entire movie. It's kind of just a reflection of his beliefs and his Christianity and his strictness with himself. I think there's a great reflection there. It's just really beautiful. It's oddly beautiful. I felt the same way about Midsommar. I couldn't really describe it right as I was seeing it, but I just knew that it was affecting me emotionally. I definitely recommend it, and I think the acting is great. The scenery is beautiful. The cinematography is great. The directing is great. And it's not scary. It has this very surreal lens that it's shot with, and you just kind of can't take your eyes off of it. I was just so hooked on what was happening, and I couldn't look away. And I don't think this is a flawless movie, but it's one where, just based on my own pleasure from watching it and my love for it, that I consider it just a favorite, and I'm going to give it 10 out of 10. So again, I'm not saying that there aren't any problems or that people couldn't pick apart this movie from a critical eye. I do think the representation of women is not great. There aren't really any developed female characters. The women and men are very free with their sexuality and their bodies, but it does feel like we see more of the women in that side. I think there could have been a more balanced perspective, so it feels less focused on female nudity, but it does play a role in the story and of this society that we're seeing and their values. So it does have significance to it. It's not just nudity for the sake of nudity. I just really loved it at the end of the day, and I recommend it. That's all I gotta say. All right, have a wonderful rest of the day or night or whenever time of the day you're watching this, and I will see you later.